Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Today I want to talk about something that a lot of customers have issues with, but they don't notice it until they bring me in a print and get it printed. Then I bring it up and they freak out. So what is it? Well, it's sensor dust. Now, what is sensor dust? Well, literally it's dust that gets inside of the camera and lands on the sensor. Sensor dust, pretty straightforward. But the issue is that a lot of people don't know what it looks like. So they look at pictures, they think the pictures look good, and then they all of a sudden, when they come in to get them printed, notice these little specks on it. Now, sometimes I pick it up before I print it, sometimes I don't. Depends what size they are, depends how busy I am, depends how quick they want it turned around, so many different things. So let's go into what sensor dust is, how to prevent it, how to clean it. I'm not going to talk specifically about cleaning your camera or all the different ways, but I'm going to show you some of the stuff that you can use and what I've used in the past and that I find that works. Now, what I'm about to do to this camera, you should not do to your camera. Do not do this. Have I been clear enough? This is an old camera. It's a dead camera that somebody brought me in, and I ripped it apart so that you can see what the sensor looks like. And you do not do this to your camera. So what's the sensor? Well, the sensor is that thing back there, that little shiny thing at the back that you see in your camera when you open it up, and that's what captures the image. That's the sensor. Lens goes on here, or if it's a lens cap, it goes on there, and it's protected inside. Technically, it shouldn't get a lot of dust in it, but it does. And I don't care what camera you're talking about. I don't care how good the lenses are, how good the cameras are, dust gets in. Now, the only cameras I've never found dust to get into are point and shoot cameras and hybrid cameras where the lenses do not come off the cameras. And in those cases, if you ever did get dust, it means that the camera has to go to the manufacturer because you cannot access the sensor. With mirrorless and with DSLR cameras, you can actually get in and clean the sensor yourself. So first, how do you know if you have any dust on the sensor? Well, if you take any pictures and you see these spots on it, generally they're a little bit whiter of a spot to a gray spot. They're noticeable once you know what you're looking for, and I'll put up here so that you can see some sensor dust as to what you should be looking for. And once you see it, you'll notice it. But how do you check your sensor to see if it has a lot of dust on it or if it needs to be cleaned? Well, here's the way that I like to do it. First, I set my camera on aperture priority. I turn the ISO up to usually 400 or 800 ISO. I then take my aperture and I set it at the highest number that I can set for the lens that I'm using. So f24, 28, 32, 64, whatever that number is. The higher the number, the better. Then I go outside with a lens on the camera and I take a picture of either a blue sky or of a solid color cloud. And the reason that you want it to be solid colors, you don't want there to be a lot of variance in colors or in shades in what you're taking a picture of. Then you take some pictures. You want to make sure your camera is focusing. Take a bunch of pictures, come in, and then put them up on the computer. When you have them up on the computer, look at the images, zoom in a little bit, and see if there's any specks that are on the picture that shouldn't be there. Now, sensor dust generally does not move from picture to picture. So sensor dust will be in the same spot as you go picture to picture to picture to picture. Now, some people are going to say that, well, my camera has this thing that shakes and it's supposed to get rid of dust. Yeah, that's the biggest gimmick ever. If you want to do a test, here's a perfect way to do a test. Get a jar, get a lid, take a tablespoon of lint, dust, whatever, put it in the jar, put the lid on it, and keep shaking until it disappears. It doesn't disappear. And the problem with all this stuff, the anti-this, the anti-that, that shakes, that's supposed to get rid of the dust, is it's still sealed in here. So the dust has to go someplace. The most staticky thing in here is the sensor. So guess where the dust goes to? It goes to the sensor. Yes, it may move some dust around. Seldom does it do that, but it may, but generally nothing happens. So you have to take some action on your own. Now, if you notice you have sensor dust, you have a couple decisions to make. The first decision is, do you want to take it to somebody to clean the sensor for you? Perfectly good option. It's going to cost you generally from around here between $40 and $60 to get your sensor clean. You say, well, that's a lot of money. Well, you'll see why in a minute. You take a camera to them, they pop it all open, they clean the sensor, they give it back to you. Most of the times when I've seen this done, it does not get the sensor perfectly clean. Why? Because you're paying somebody to do it, they're doing a job, and they're handing it back to you, getting the worst of the stuff off. So your second option is to do it yourself. Now, this is pretty hair-raising for most people because you're taking a multi-$1,000 camera, whether it's a cheap one that's just $1,000 or whether it's an expensive one that's $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, and you're sticking something inside of it to clean it. So it can be pretty freaky to do it. Believe me, done it a few times, and sometimes it goes really well, sometimes it doesn't. But you can do it yourself. Now, again, just like I told you, don't stick your finger inside your camera like I do with this one. Read your camera manual and instructions on how to clean the sensor, because every camera is different and different camera manufacturers recommend different ways of doing it. For instance, one of the cameras that I had years ago actually stated before cleaning the sensor, you must plug the camera into external power supply. Well, guess what? 99% of the cameras that you get nowadays don't have an external power supply. And even with that camera, it didn't come with an external power supply. So it was really hard to do it the way that they said to do it. But that's what they recommended. Other manufacturers say only do it after you've charged your battery. That's a recommendation. Follow it. Other camera manufacturers say only use this or only use that to clean your sensor. So follow the recommendations. Word of warning, do this when you have time. Don't do this 10 minutes before you're going to shoot a wedding, 10 minutes before you're leaving on a trip to shoot nature and wildlife pictures, or 5 minutes before that you're going to leave on a family vacation. It's not worth it. It's too rushed. You need to do this when you have lots of time. So, here's what I suggest. Do it when you're not rushed. Do it when you're not tired, when you're not frustrated. Do it when you're not hungry. Do it when you have some time that you can sit down and take the time to do it. For me, I'll do it on a day when the studio is going to be slow. So if it's a holiday and I'm in here, I'll do it then. If it's a day when the weather's kind of iffy outside, I'll do it then. I'll go take my test prints or my test images, put them on the screen, look at them. If there's lots of dust, then I'll clean it. I make sure that everything is set up. I make sure I have all the stuff before I start. I make sure I have time. I make sure I'm not going to be rushed. I make sure I don't need the camera. I go through all of that first. And then once I go through that, once I'm ready to go, then I go ahead and do my cleaning. But I don't rush it. So how can you clean sensor dust? Well, again, there's a number of ways to do this. But here's a few. So the first and the simplest, if this is the type of dust you have, is you go into your camera menu, you tell it that you're cleaning the sensor, it will move everything out of the way, it'll allow you to get to the sensor, then you take this and you blow some air on the sensor, hopefully removing the dust from inside of here out. Now, don't use canned air. Don't use an air compressor. That's all you need. You don't need to get 2000 PSI. You don't need all of this. You just need to blow some dust away. That's all you're doing. So try this first. I recommend these for so many reasons, because you can remove dust from a camera. You can blow dust off your lens. You can do so much with these. They're like $20 and they're great for cleaning a lot of stuff. Great for cleaning keyboards. Great for doing a lot of stuff. Better than compressed air for many things. So you can try this. First thing, honestly, chances are 99% of the time that the dust you have on the sensor, this will not get rid of. But this will clean up dust that's in the camera and get it out. I use this a lot of times when I have dust that I see when I'm looking through the viewfinder. I will take this, I will blow off the mirror, I will blow off the top, I will blow off this. I'll clean out, make sure all the dust is blown out of there. And I'm hoping that it eliminates or stops some of the dust from getting to the sensor. But I know that in most cases, this is not going to do it alone. So then what else can you do? Well, you can go out and get what's called a sensor swab. And these are sensor swabs. I've actually taken them apart to show people what they are. And all they are is a tiny little spatula, and they're covered with some cleaning material. And they are taped, or not taped, but elasticized onto these so that you can take these, you put a little bit of fluid on it, you put it in the camera, you drag it across the sensor, you flip it over, you drag it the other way, and then you throw it away. That's what they're designed for. They work wonderful. In fact, of all the stuff I've ever used, this is probably the best way of cleaning a sensor. If your camera manufacturer says that you can use these, don't use them if the manufacturer says that they don't work on your camera, because you want to make sure you're not wrecking your camera. But I've used these hundreds of times. They're expensive. They're about $4 to $5 a piece. That's 4 to 5, not $45. So $4 to $5 for each one of these. You put a drop of fluid on it. It cleans it. You do it twice. You throw it out. You do the next one. Generally, 2 to 3 of these will clean your sensor. And again, all they are is a plastic spatula with some stuff over top of it. And they're sterile, they're clean when you get them, and they work wonderful for cleaning your sensor. But they are more money, and you do have to make sure that your camera manufacturer says that you can use them. The thing that I use the most is called Visible Dust from Arctic Butterfly. It was actually developed here in Alberta. The head office for these guys aren't too far away from me. I didn't even know that when I bought it. And it really works wonderful. So what is it? Well, what it is it's a device with little tiny bristles on the end of it. And you turn it on, it cleans itself. Then you take this and you put it on the sensor, you move it across the sensor, and the little bristles on here pick up your dust. You then clean it, you then do it again, you can clean it, do it again, you can do it tens of thousands of times. So that's what I like about it, is because you can use it over and over and over and over again, and it costs you nothing other than the price of the device. You can buy replacement brushes for it. So if your brush starts to wear out, if it's been on there a long time, if you happen to touch it with your hand, which you should never do, if you get something on it, you can replace the brush. It just comes out, you put a new one in, and then you go and clean it. Now, don't turn it on when it's inside. That was not meant to show putting it in there and turning it on. You clean it out here. You then pull it across, clean it, do it again, over and over and over again. Once you clean it, I then take the blower and I will blow it, because if I've knocked off any dust off the sensor, I want to get it out of there. Do I think it works? I do think it works. Do they recommend it? I've not seen that they've ever recommended it, but that's how I've done it for a long time, and it seems to work. Then, once you clean it, you put the lens back on again, you put it back into operating mode, then you go outside and take some more test prints. Okay, now a word of warning. When you do the first cleaning, then you put the lens back on the camera, and you go out and take another test print. You come in and you view them on your computer. You're going to notice that you're going to have more dust, generally, after cleaning it than you did before. It takes several times of doing it to clean it. I have spent, one camera took me 7 times to do it. Another camera took me 6 times. It varies. So understand that it usually gets a lot worse before it gets better. You clean it, you put the lens back on, you go take a test print, you check the test print, and then you continue. Now, when you're doing test prints, always do multiple test shots. Don't do just one. For many reasons. The dust may be behind a dark spot just because there's a cloud that moved or something, or you may not have it focused perfectly or whatever. So do multiple test images, then come back, go through them all and see if there's any dust on it. If there's still dust there, do it all over again. Put the lens back on, go do another test image, come back, view them, go back and keep going. It can take a while. It can be stressful, believe me, but it is worth it. If you're dealing with dust, get it clean. Stop just photoshopping it. Stop just wasting your time trying to shoot around it. I had somebody come in with a bunch of images that they shot. They had major dust, and I mean major dust. And every picture they got, there was a speck of dust right on the side of the bride's nose. And it was horrible. It was noticeable. So they had to go and Photoshop every single picture of the bride that they had taken. Now, when they took pictures of the groups and stuff like that, the dust wasn't as noticeable because it was somewhere else. But in a few pictures, we even noticed it on a subject. And if you looked, if you knew what you were looking for, you could see that speck of dust because the dust doesn't move when you're going from picture to picture to picture. So if the speck is there and you go picture to picture to picture, you'll see the speck and you'll see maybe people here, people there, head, so on and so forth. So why not get rid of it? Why not clean it? This person came in to have me do all their editing for them because they didn't have time to edit the speck of dust out on all their pictures. It would have been cheaper, it would have been quicker for them to clean it than to have me edit it. So check your images. I would say every 2, 3, 4 months, depending upon how much you use your camera, see if you have dust. Clean it as according to how your camera manufacturer has told you to clean it. And then go ahead, take pictures and not worry about the dust. So until next time, have yourself a great day. I'm going to go and check my cameras for dust, and I'm going to clean them today because I have some time, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.